Hello, thank you for being here. Thank you to all the new subscribers in the last month. I really appreciate that because it helps to get, as we all know, the message out there. I feel that I generally do have important messages that just basically help people within their own lives navigate their own experiences, whether it's through death, dying, and grief, or even spirituality. And so, thank you for subscribing, and hopefully, today's message will be something that might resonate and help you on your journey and make it that little bit easier. So, my name's Melissa Newman. I am the founder and CEO of Rising Strong Holistic Healing, and all of my work is focused on death, dying, grief, and spirituality. I'm an end of life consultant and have vast years of experience in basically supporting people emotionally and mentally through their journeys of life. So I've worked in the space of youth support, alcohol and drugs, suicide prevention, mental health, and going way back, personal trainer. So I have a lot of years behind me where I have supported people through that journey of just our psychological well-being. So today, my message is about how hurtful it feels at times to have to walk away from relationships that don't feel like they are serving us. But when I reflect on my own journey, it's the one reason that I don't fear death, because I'm at a place of peace with who I am and who I have been so far within this human life. So today I've got a few notes that I've written down just to help me stay on track and stay focused and bring through this message. So perhaps you're a person who also has had to walk away from a relationship. Maybe you've been a person that's tried to keep the peace within the family structure. Maybe you have felt that your relationships have always been one-sided, where there hasn't been an equal reciprocation, where you might be giving more than you might be receiving. And this often can lead us or leave us feeling very drained and unfulfilled after we walk away. Because when we walk away, we find that the experience has been either disempowering, unfulfilling, or just completely drained. And there's reasons for that. So either way, you might have felt that your interactions are not as fulfilling as you would wish. And you might have been in these experiences with these relationships, really trying to hang on to try to keep it to work and work and do the best that you can to be able to keep the family unit together, whatever it might be. But this is what I want to talk about because it's a very a common experience for many people at the moment. And I wanted to communicate on a few different things. So my message today is, one, I totally get it. I understand what it feels like to feel like you give more than you receive, and you do give in a place of unconditional love. But there are also that it does actually come from a place of lack consciousness as well, which I will explain. And so I want to bring through a message of hope that even though we have to at times feel that we need to walk away, that there is actually still an opportunity that there can be a reconciliation in your relationships. And I want to share why through my own experiences, because it's been a very big, I guess, soul game changer for myself and the other person involved, which I'm about to share. So reconciliation can be achieved. So this is what this message is about today. But also, it's important to also understand that reconciliation is important to actually try to achieve that now, rather than waiting till either we are on our deathbed or the other person is on their deathbed trying to make resolution, because often, as I see in my work, by then it can be too late. And it's really important that we are able to, it's part of the human experience, is to be able to live in this world and resolve whatever it might be in all of our experiences. Relationships is the big one. But there is a reason too that we must ourselves find that peace and forgiveness within, first and foremost for ourselves. And that means by walking, if it means walking your path alone, so that you can find that peace, that forgiveness, the resolution that you need for yourself, but also go through a term that I've picked up from Tony Robbins is called constant and never-ending improvement. It is that journey where you go through the constant and never-ending improvement of yourself, to learn whatever it is that you might need to understand from those experiences within those relationships that you might feel are disempowering you, that you might feel are exhausting you, or disrespecting you. There's many things that will go on, but it's unique to all of us. And so the other person, when we do find that we might sort of go our separate ways, the other person, if they're in a place of desiring change within themselves to improve themselves and their relationships, hopefully they go on a similar journey, because if they do, that's when that resolution or reconciliation can take place. And how perfect at this time of Easter. So we might be letting go of relationships. It's very hurtful, but please know that it may not be permanent, and I'm about to explain why. So the result of that, though, when we do go through these experiences, from my experience, that in time, when and if you have walked alone for a period of time, that you can come back to that place of resolution, and you come back to that place through forgiveness, understanding, and compassion, because you've both been able to learn from your experiences and understand what they mean. So maybe in your relationship, you might feel that, because I have felt this with my own siblings, and one in particular, that it always felt like it came from a place of competition. Every time because I'm a very driven Leo energy personality, so I'm driven to achieve, I'm driven to strive, and the other person was a complete opposite. So in their experience, they used to always, I felt that there was always competition. And in that competition, that I felt that they were always competing, it always felt like they were always trying to get one up on me. But I could never understand why that was, because I didn't feel like I needed to do that in return. But there is a reason that I was seeing competition as well, because there was something within me that was lacking. So all of this is what I want to try to sort of pin together and bring forward, to help you in your understanding why maybe certain things are happening in your relationships that is causing you to feel the need to walk away, because it's just not working. And it doesn't happen in those family dynamics. It happens in all types of relationships, whether within our work place, people we meet, other relationships that we come into contact with. What those experiences are always showing us is there's something within us that needs to change, and it's the one thing that generally triggers us and bothers us. So the question is, when you are able to reflect back on what you did not like, the other person is also standing on the other side, seeing within you something that they don't like. And that can sometimes be triggering because you might feel that you're not reflecting anything negative to them. And I could say that myself with my own relationships, because what I'm about to share is about the reconciliation I now have with my parents. I have been extremely loving and compassionate and tolerant all of my life through the different experiences, but there's a reason that also became unhealthy. And the message today is growth can only happen individually for us, because it's our responsibility to change within us what needs changing. It's not up to us to sit and look externally and judge what's not working. Okay, it might not be working, and it might not be helpful, and it might not be kind what you're experiencing. I get it. I've had my fair share of hurt, but it's also guiding you to understand what that is within you, because you will be actually 9 times out of 10 reflecting that, back outwards. I hope that makes sense. So growth can only happen with us personally. It has to be our responsibility to change what it is that we don't like within ourselves, what we're seeing. And it's not up to us to expect the other person to change. The responsibility to make judgment that they must change. They probably do need to change, yes, but it's not our responsibility to say to them that you need to change this about you, because at the end of the day, whatever their journey is, we actually don't fully understand what it is that they need to learn. So we can't even assume what that is. We can to a certain degree through judgment, but again, it's about coming back within. And so what does this all mean? So I want to today put it into context through my own experiences, because I've had a profound change within my own parents. So I'll probably have to go, and because I've deleted a lot of my videos, because I want to keep my channel focused in with a specific message. So I'll probably have to sort of just give a little bit of context about my story, but to also show how the resolution or the reconciliation between my father, particularly, which is amazing. It's a profound soul change on his part, which is just phenomenal. And this is my message today, is to bring hope, to say that, yes, it's hurtful to have to walk away. And I've had to do this in my life. And whilst my relationship did come back with my parents, which I think I'll just hold it there because I'll explain that in a minute. So I think it's probably important to just give a little bit of context, because I want to be able to now go back to tapping into all these points. Are you the person that always is the peacemaker? Are you the person that's always felt the unequal reciprocation? Are you the person that felt like there were relationships were based on competition, disrespect, disempowerment? Are you the person that always felt drained of the energy? Okay, this is now what I want to try to sort of explain and unpack a little bit in more detail by sharing my story. Okay, so my story, without it being long and drawn out, I've come a long way on my journey. Again, yes, my journey of soul mastery, particularly to change within me what was not working, meant I had to lose a lot of relationships, but a lot of my relationships fell away because I believe I am a person that's here with a very powerful purpose to help guide other people on their journey. I know that without a doubt. And I know it's definitely helping people, one in particular, to find that resolution. So I'm in a place where I support people through death, dying, and grief, helping people transition from this life to the next. And the one thing that always stands out is the relationship conflicts and breakdown, and that fear of dying, because there has not been that resolution within those relationships. Sorry, I've just got something pop up on my screen. I'll just get rid of that. And that's the important thing is that when it is best. And sometimes we just cannot find that resolution in certain relationships because they might have been really toxic and very hurtful and continue to be hurtful. But that resolution now, so that when you reach your deathbed, mortality, when you are facing mortality, as is with my father, it's why he's been able to come into a place of his own understanding now and resolution and peace to seek forgiveness from me. And this is the most powerful thing, is because when we're at mortality, facing that mortality, that one thing that people want to do is to find resolution, peace, and forgiveness within their relationships. And it can be done now. So here's my story. So I grew up in a family, it wasn't all, there was love, but a lot of my love was based on conditions. And if I didn't comply, then there was always punishment and retribution. Even though my actions had never been anything that was out of love, not from a child's perspective anyway. So everything had to be within a place of condition. But then all of my siblings who were going through their own unique experiences, as our lives and journeys went along, each of us then had our own conflicts with each other. And so that did create a lot of disharmony within the family unit, between each and every single one of us. But yet our experiences with our parents were also very different. So I have 5 other siblings, and I've maintained contact with one in particular who's just been my brother and I. Yeah, we are just like, we were meant to be here together, because we are just two beautiful souls that have always been in a place of absolute, I would say my brother and I, we've never fought. We've always got along. We have just had this absolute mutual respect for each other. And he's been my rock within my family. God love him. And so the family unit was quite disempowering. It was quite disrespectful on so many levels. I experienced sexual abuse when I was 13, not from my immediate family. Make that clear. And then all of my experiences, because I didn't learn as a child what I was meant to learn, carried through my adulthood with patriarchal control. It's as simple as that. There was much for me to learn. And yet I was always a person within my family that always wanted to be the peacemaker. I was always determined to, hopeful. I was always hopeful that my family and all my siblings, that one day we would all be able to find forgiveness and peace for each other and within ourselves. But that peace came at an expense, because what that means when we're generally always the peacemaker, it actually comes from a place of feeling unsafe. So when we feel unsafe in the world, within the family unit, we could be fearing abandonment. And so we will do whatever we can so that we don't become abandoned or feel rejected. So we'll do whatever to try to keep the peace, but it's actually a safety mechanism. The unequal reciprocation, which was a lot in my family, but then it was also experienced a lot in my relationships with the two men that I married. That unequal reciprocation, and it goes both ways, but that unequal reciprocation meant I overgave myself out of a place of fear of, I would say, I know, was rejection, fearing rejection. And so I would always do everything I could to give them everything that they needed within the relationship, and it was unequal because there wasn't the equal reciprocation of, I guess, heartfelt love to give back in return for whatever reason. And so that again came from an unhealthy imbalance of fear, of rejection, and probably abandonment again. It also came from a place of disrespect for myself because I never learned as a child to respect myself. I never had a role model as a father to teach me what I needed to be taught as a female to discern and live in this world safely around particularly other men. And so that disrespect and disempowerment, I allowed that to take place out of the fear of either rejection or abandonment. And so then that place of disrespect, competition and disempowerment, that's all the same. That came from my upbringing with the amount of disempowerment as a child. A very big impact on my life was the abuse when I was 13. That abuse took away the power, my personal power. I know it to this day. How, and then that, because I could not communicate that within my family, and when I did, when I was 18, and finally found the courage to speak up and actually share what actually happened to me as a 13-year-old, this particular experience was when we were on a family holiday, and I felt safe within my family. The family unit at that time was really happy. We all got along. It was all when most of us siblings were embarking on our own journeys of life with either relationships, marriages, having, especially my older siblings, with having their own children and all that sort of stuff. There was a period there where that was just wonderful, those experiences. So I felt really safe, and I actually felt safe to share what actually happened. And I got shut down and blamed and told that I was lying about that experience to get attention, which was absolutely not true. But that moment of being completely shut down, and as anyone knows, when you finally get the courage to share about such a traumatic experience as sexual abuse, to shut someone down is absolute crushing for that person, because it just takes everything away from them. So that just implanted that unworthiness, that implanted more, like not good enough. My parents didn't believe me that I was actually telling the truth, and so forth. And so there were many experiences that disempowered me as a child, as a young adult, and then that kind of followed through with the people that I married, because they came into my life to mirror to me what I still had not learnt within myself as it's hard when you're a child because you are learning emotional intelligence, but even as a young adult, as you are learning to live in the world and find your place in the world. And so then that disempowerment continued, and then that just kept playing out constantly in many different relationships. And so all of this, there was always, even though I showed up in my family, just to sort of probably finish sharing on my story as such, but my experiences with my family, I was that peacekeeper. I was the person that was always hopeful, that was always tolerant, but then that tolerance didn't provide, didn't allow, or I didn't allow myself to have healthy boundaries to be able to say no, that's not okay. Then as all the years went past or by, I experienced all of that again when my son had died from taking his own life. Again, I experienced the blame and the shame. It was my fault. That was the message that came from my family. And my son now was no longer recognized within my family, which cut me to the core, that people could just completely, even grandparents could completely just pretend that he didn't exist. And anyway, so I went through that experience and all of that grieving. And that was a breakdown. There was a complete breakdown. That was the complete breakdown. And knowing that this relationship with my parents in particular, some of my brothers and sisters, I had to walk away because it was just constantly disempowering me. And that was a really hard thing to do, but that experience of the loss of my son really catapulted my life in a completely different direction. It catapulted my life, as hurtful as it was to leave the relationships that I knew were not going to serve me in this lifetime. I knew I had to walk forward, and it meant leaving them behind. But the magic of that, which I didn't think ever would happen, was the most recent reconciliation. So anyway, just to speed up this story, so that all of those experiences, my family I was no longer communicating with my family. 8 years ago, coming on to 8 years ago now when my son passed. But 3 years, I think it was roughly down the track after my son had passed, I just got this random phone call from my parents. Now, I had done a lot of inner work within myself, so I was actually at a lot of peace because I understood all of the experiences of what I was meant to learn from all of those experiences of disempowerment, disrespect, unworthiness, and not good enough, because we were never empowered as children. We were always told to be quiet, go to the corner, go to the room, don't speak. The voice, the power of my voice was taken away in the sense of constantly being told, go to your room. You couldn't communicate, don't talk when the TV's on. And even experiences when we used to sit around the dining table, and all of us, the 8 of us together, sitting at the dining table, it was full of criticism. It was who could, give the other person the biggest blow, as in criticism, and everyone would laugh. If in my family at that dinner table, you would pick something out of someone that was deemed a flaw, and everyone would laugh at it and make a joke about it. These are the experiences that I learnt were very disempowering. Anyway, a couple of years down the track, I actually had done so much work within myself to find my own peace and forgiveness for those experiences, to understand what it was that I needed to know through all those experiences of criticism, disempowerment, etc. And so I was at a place of peace that I knew that if I was to go to my deathbed, I knew within my heart I did everything that I could to create peace, to be the love, to be the expression, the example of what love is, what kindness is. I know without a doubt that that's who I was. That was what I was always trying to portray. And this random phone call, so when it came through, it's just like, whoa, do I answer this phone call? And I went, you know what? I can do that. I can answer this because I'm actually in a place of okay. I'm at peace. So I answered the phone call out of curiosity more than anything. And curiosity is a great word, because when you're curious, there's just a non-attachment to the outcome. And so I entertained the idea of, I wonder where my parents are in their mindset. Obviously they're calling because they want some kind of resolve. Anyway, so our relationship did reconnect at that point. The thing was, every time we did have the phone call, it was just every month, and it again always took me to make the phone call. It always took me to make the effort, and it was just like, this hasn't really changed. I was like, wow, you know what? I'm able to embrace these experiences, and I can actually sit in these experiences, whether they still feel disempowering, and know that I don't need to react anymore. So that was an absolute sign of my growth, that I didn't need to react. And so a couple of years passed, and this communication was kind of off and on. It was again still, it wasn't pure love, but because of their age, I felt that they were in a place that it gave them some sense of peace. They may not have made their own resolutions within themselves, as in accepted responsibility for their actions, and that's not up to me to know whether they did or they didn't. And so the journey kind of went on. It never felt connected to me, but I always was willing to tap in, knowing what it's like for elderly people as they get closer to their mortality. I understand through my work the regret that many people hold. So I was actually willing to actually show up in a place of compassion and show them what compassion was. I just always wanted to be the example. I didn't need to say anything. I just had to be the example. So I did this for many years, 3 years, maybe, 3 years, something like that. And then it was last year in September. So my parents live in Sydney. I'm in Queensland. And I don't often go to Sydney anymore because I don't have a reason to, other than it would be for my brother. And so I knew that I was going to be within close to where I was, only a couple of hours away from where they were living. And I thought, it was playing on my mind as in, do I go see them? Because I knew what to expect. And often that's not good, right? If I expect something, then that's what the energy I put out. So that's what I'm going to receive. So I was actually aware of that thought. So I had to reach a place within my heart to know that it was something that I wanted to do unconditionally. If it meant for my aging parents who are in their 80s, that it gave them some kind of peace or joy, then that was my goal. So I went and visited my parents whilst I was away. And anyway, it didn't turn out how I how I was preparing myself for, because there was another moment where my son had been the one who has passed, who was completely disrespected. And then in my entire life, the one thing that I had never done was stand up to my father and say, no, no more. You cannot do this anymore. And so I did, in the kindest way. I wasn't aggressive. I wasn't angry. I just reached this point. I literally said, you cannot do this anymore. You cannot disempower my son. You cannot ignore him and pretend he never existed. I was a bit shocked I even said it, but I felt, and it was soon after my parents just got up and left. And I felt absolutely heartbroken that my parents, to that moment, was still in that lack mindset. I understand why. And I left that afternoon actually quite tearful. I felt very tearful and very hurt, but I felt liberated that I stood up and said, no, you cannot do that anymore. It took again a couple of months to process and to come into a place of forgiveness and to come into understanding. And at that point, and so a couple of months had passed and I had never heard from them again. And I didn't want to be the one to actually reach out, because that's what I always did. So I actually had then set a boundary, which was probably well overdue. I set a boundary that could not happen anymore. But I was saddened, because I understand the importance of relationships and being able to find resolution and actually having, loving connections in life. But I know my loving connections is my community that I create around me. It doesn't have to be blood. It doesn't have to be blood. And when you can accept that, then you will actually find you'll step into a little bit more peace within yourself. That it's wonderful to have those connections through family, absolutely. But it doesn't have to be, when you understand the human experience and the journey of the soul. And so I was still grappling with that, I guess, loss, in a sense that they are probably going to pass and leave this world, and that was it. And that's kind of how it was going to play out in my world. But I knew I did absolutely everything that I could to be the kindest person that I could be under the circumstances. I finally stood up for myself and gave myself back the power that I needed to give myself back to liberate myself. And I didn't do it in a cruel or unkind way. I did it in a respectful way. And then lo and behold, in the last month, so many months, so it's been probably 6 months. It's been 6 months. And then I received that random phone call. And I was like, and what triggered them to give me that phone call was because Queensland was experiencing lots of the cyclone. That's right, the cyclone. And that was my parents' opportunity to feel safe to call me. Because then, I guess in their mind, they must have been reflecting, I hope she's okay. And so those opportunities are wonderful. to help people to reflect on their actions and their behaviors. And so I received the phone call to see that I was okay, which was nice. And I answered the phone and I was happy to be diplomatic. I didn't need to have hostility. I didn't need to go into the conversations of, you did this, who do you think you are calling me? I was in a place of compassion. And then I thought, this is an opportunity, because I know in my work, this is what I do with my clients who are ending, whose life is about to end, is I encourage people to have that conversation. It takes courage to bring up the conversation. And so I said and brought up our experience when I visited them. And I brought that conversation back into the light. And what actually happened was my father broke down and cried. And they actually expressed their sadness for the experience. They, as they are facing mortality, in hindsight, it's a wonderful thing because that really brings things fast forward, especially when it comes to resolving conflict in families. My father finally reached a place of understanding within him. He didn't have to say in too many words. I knew through his feelings, through his energy, that there was a place of sorrow and sadness for the actions and for the behaviors. And the beautiful message from this story is that we were able to reconcile. We've been able to come into this place of now acceptance for each other, respect for each other. And there now seems to be, it feels like, because I received a message the other day and received to receive like a heart message from my father is actually massive. So I know he's come into a place of love. Maybe he's loving him. I don't need to know, but maybe he's loving himself, that he's been able to see the truth of maybe his experiences and the way he chose to be in this world, whatever it is. So this is my message today, that even this far down the track, we can reach that place of reconciliation with each other. But sometimes we do need to go away. We need to walk alone on our journey so we can reflect inwards what it is we need to learn to understand within ourselves, because all of those experiences, whilst externally when we're looking out, yes, they're hurtful, but they're actually showing what is within us that also needs changing. So if you are triggered by feeling disrespected, for example, I guarantee you are probably not respecting yourself, which I didn't, because that's why I tolerated. That's why I didn't set boundaries. So if it's an experience of competition, for example, if you feel that you've got a sibling or someone competing against you always, even though it's not what you're trying to do, it's my experience with my sister, that is actually coming when we turn around and look, why am I triggered by competition? It's because I'm disempowering myself, feeling less worthy, for whatever reason, feeling unworthy, maybe not enough. That's a huge one in for humanity. Unworthiness and not good enough has been the two big ones for humanity to learn through. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with us. But when you can come to that place, then what do we need to do to get to that place? We need to find the respect for ourselves in everything we do. We need to come to that place of self-love. We've got to stop giving, over giving. We've got to give to ourselves and know that it's okay for us to also receive. Because that constant giving is the imbalance of not good enough. You within yourself basically don't feel, and subconsciously you don't feel that you are deserving, because you would have been taught it somewhere in your lifetime, generally childhood. So my journey was unlearning heaps of stuff and relearning heaps of stuff to empower me as an individual in this world. And that's how you can find within your relationships that whilst your relationship might be ending now, it may not mean that it is permanent. And the key thing is, it is important to find that resolution now, if you can, if it is safe to do so. And do not wait until you're on your deathbed, because often it can be too late. People that want that resolution, some people don't want to have that resolution as well. There are going to be our siblings or people, relationships that we have, that they actually don't want to change who they are. And they have that choice. That is the free choice and will of their soul. It doesn't make them wrong, doesn't make them less than. It is just their choice, which reminds us how we always just need to focus on us and take responsibility for our life, our actions. And if you can always come from a place of responsiveness and not reactiveness, a place of unconditional love, yes, some experiences will be disempowering, but I guarantee you, you can actually be compassionate to know that they're just doing their journey, however they feel they need to do it. There's nothing wrong with that, because it's always teaching someone else. You only have to worry about you. And so my message today, I hope this has resonated with you on some level, to maybe take away some of the hurt with having to walk away from your relationships. But know, keep in your heart that one day there could be a resolution. Keep doing the inner work on what it is that you need to understand out of your experiences for yourself. And just like this Easter, let go. Surrender to what needs to go now, so that you can birth something new. Make space. Maybe make space for you. It's time to make space in your world so that you can receive the love that you deserve. You absolutely deserve love, every single person, good or bad, however we might deem someone. Everyone deserves love. And if anyone is coming from a place of lack, it's because they're actually crying out for love. They might not be expressing it that way, but that's what it is. And when you can understand that, it allows for things to grow and evolve, so that one day in time, in the perfect time, that you will be able to reconcile. But if there's anything to take from this, is you need to be in that place of peace yourself, a place of forgiveness, so that when you reach your mortality and you're in your last moments on this planet, that you know you did the absolute best you could. Namaste.